Hello, everybody, and welcome to a bonus episode of that Milan podcast. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo alongside me. I had the realization after recording that podcast after the Inter victory in the Derby that we were just super heavily focused on that, and we didn't get too much into the Lecce side of things. And that match is this Friday, so we are recording on Wednesday. This is a quick turnaround for Milan, and then we're getting into the Leverkusen matchup again. We have appreciated all your support. We've been getting fantastic feedback on everything. Win, lose, or draw has literally what it's been like the past 2 weeks. No draws. Actually, yes, draw with Lazio, but still happy to have you guys. So like, subscribe, comment, and give us all the feedback. We'll get to a couple of questions today, but we're diving right in and making this one a quick one. Milan faced Lecce on Friday, as we all talked about. I was on the Sempre Milan podcast yesterday, discussing it a little bit with Ali, Maddie, and Torgrud Santangelo. I also didn't realize how quickly this game is coming. Not only that, Lecce just played in Coppa Italia yesterday against Sassuolo, who Milan will now be facing in Coppa Italia. So, yeah, Lecce had a crazy match against Parma. We didn't really get to talk about that too much. They had a 2-0 lead going into stoppage time. Parma do their best Leverkusen impression, end up with a draw. This one was 10-10 in terms of men on the field. So, again, this was chaotic for Lecce. Really morale draining, I would assume, right? Going up 2-0 into stoppage, you blow that, you get eliminated from Coppa Italia. Oh, and we have to travel to San Siro to face Milan on Friday. So Lecce kind of limping into this match.
Right. Yeah, no, I think I don't know if that was my kid. Yeah, no, I think Milan have to be of a certain mindset, especially when it comes to clubs like Lecce. And when I say clubs like Lecce, I say clubs that have a tendency to cause fits for Milan, but also for some of the other more high-end, high-profiled Serie A clubs. We've talked about Inter and the likes of which have been struggling against Lecce in recent years. Those teams can be very tricky, and it's easy to still be riding the high from a big, massive Derby victory. But in a way, I almost prefer that Friday quick turnaround. I think it's something that can, Milan can build off of. They go into that match, they're the first team to play or one of the first teams to play ahead of the weekend. And I know it's early days. We're match day 6 here.
I'm scoreboard watching, baby.
But yeah, like you always have to be scoreboard watching. Every result matters. You're looking at the table and you're looking at like, okay, goal differential and where teams are and how the schedule stacks up. And that's no different here. So I think that Milan, while they can still I think they've enjoyed enough of the Milan Derby victory. Perhaps it probably ended yesterday. Monday, Tuesday. And now there's a look ahead, right? You got a match at hand. You take care of the team in front of you. And as I mentioned in the previous podcast, which you guys should go check that out. You guys have been super supportive of that one. That's been one of our best recordings in a while. So that's all thanks to you. But they have to be able to compound good positive results here. They can't dwell on the result of the Inter game, because if they follow it up with a performance more aligning to what we've seen in the matches prior to that, they're going to be very disappointed in the result that they do get handed to them on Friday. So this has to be a big focus for Paulo Fonseca in training, is the mentality component of playing this sport and not overlooking a club like Lecce, who again has a tendency to be a bit of a giant killer, and maybe not a killer, but a team that is will take a result off a team when they absolutely need one. And Milan still, despite that victory against Inter, and then obviously previously against Venezia, they need another win here. They need to start building that sort of confidence and that momentum as they look to climb the table.
Yeah, and again, some of the matchups that we could go through in Serie A this weekend: Udinese, Inter. Not a great time for Inter to be facing them, but again, Udinese are so Jekyll and Hyde usually. Genoa, Juve. I mean, listen, Juve have had issues.
They haven't scored in 3 matches.
So, everybody loves to praise them, but this is why I was kind of off on Juve this year. I don't think they have the offensive firepower. We'll see. They eventually have to score. Bologna-Atalanta. I think this one's big. I don't know if you caught much of the Atalanta match. They had to play against Como. Yesterday, their match was suspended. They just got it in. First win in Serie A for Como since 2003. So last time, that happened. Milan were lifting Champions League and on their way to another league title. So just historical references. And then again, not much tough matchups outside of the other competitors here. Napoli against Monza whispers that Nesta's job is already on the line, which is crazy. Not great results for them there. Torino Lazio in an early riser, and that's pretty much it. For Milan, you have to keep your foot on the gas here. I think this would be, if you get this victory, that's 4 positive results in a row in Serie A. Again, the way the match went against Lazio was very, frustrating, I would say, from a fan's perspective. But again, away draw at the Olimpico.
If you're just looking at through the lens of strictly just basing
what happened prior to that, I think standalone, a draw at the Olimpico is not bad. People are going to probably disagree with that, but the result itself speaks for it. And then again, derby victory over Venezia. And then if you get this win over Lecce, you're talking about 3 straight victories, 4 positive results within Serie A. And then you're really just looking at those first couple games where you're like, what the hell was going on there? First and foremost, Matt, they have to come out with balance here. They can't just like come off of that great performance against Inter and then start to look shaky and concede some of these chances where teams are hitting them on the counterattack. I think Fonseca is probably going to play this in terms of starting his best players again and hoping they take care of business, where we're looking at a Venezia situation where he's able to sub off quite a few of these players in the second half of or early on in the second half. So yeah, one of the main rumors actually that's been reported is that Jimenez is training as the first team starter at the right back position. Calabria is not able to go. Emerson Royale, I would assume this is to give him more minutes for that match against Leverkusen, because it looks like he's going to be tipped as a starter for it. Jimenez, I watched the Futuro game in probably some of the lowest of quality that you could possibly watch in the most recent match. Jimenez looked like easily the most prepped and ready to go player for Serie A. We've already seen him debut. We know that's part of why he left Real Madrid, was because of his minutes and his opportunities that were lacking with the first team because it's Real Madrid. For me, I would love to see this. You and I talked about it all summer long on how we really wanted to see more of these youngsters and these Futuro players get some of these opportunities. This kind of aligns with where we were talking about where they could feature. It could be a match against, a relegation candidate during a Champions League week. This looks like it's one of those things. Jimenez, I think, instantly brings Serie A ready attacking quality. In terms of his defensive ability, we'll have to see how much growth has been there since we saw him feature early in 2024. What are your vibes about this in the Jimenez potential debut for this year?
If nothing else, I think, getting a batch of minutes in this match would be good for him. And this is sort of the match that you touched upon in previous episodes where, we were talking about struggling players and, the concern over injuries and a compact schedule over a long season. And we were, encouraging Paulo Fonseca, although he doesn't listen to this podcast, to start integrating some of these players, right? Some of these youth players in the Milan Futuro sector. And, I think Jimenez, although, again, he did get some seasoning last year with the first team. Now he's playing in Serie C right now, struggling Milan Futuro. I know it's very early. He is one of the players that is a little bit more ripe and primed for this stage, if we're speaking purely on those that are, his contemporaries in the team in Serie C. So I'd like to see him get that opportunity to suit up, train, and again, maybe get 15 to 20 minutes. Maybe this is a match where, we don't know the status still of Davide Calabria. I know he trained apart from the group today. I think that was
It
the
said,
report.
yeah, so the DiMarzio report said that Calabria is likely to be absent and that Jimenez has been tested as the starter in training.
So yeah, so it looks like there's a clear indication that Emerson is probably going to be coming on at some point in that match, I would assume. If nothing else, it's maybe for 15 to 20 minutes at the end, just to kind of spare him a little bit of a breather ahead of the Leverkusen game next week, which is crucial. The Champions League games are still a focus for us, especially with us having that difficult start against Liverpool. You want to be able to put a victory in that column, and you want to hope that you have your best team available for that game. So I think that you give Jimenez the opportunity. Maybe there's the chance that if he struggles or he's not quite maintaining that sort of level of intensity through the entirety of the match, you still have maybe Terracciano in an emergency situation who you can put in the fullback position.
Yeah.
If you feel like you want to give Emerson the true breather, although again, I think in another conversation, I don't know necessarily if Emerson is going to be entirely rested for this game, like if they're not going to use him at all. But I will say that because he did end the game against Inter on a high note, maybe it's one of those things where you play Emerson in 15 to maybe for the second half or the last 30 minutes or 20 minutes of the game. And, you still try to kind of stockpile some good performances, even if they're in small spurts. So Fonseca's got some things to take care of in this match as far as his planning and prep. But I do think that, again, the formation should be pretty similar to what we saw against Inter, with a couple tinkerings here and there with, of course, the right back being a likely one if you believe reports.
Yeah. And there's a big report that came across my desk, which we'll talk at the end of the episode.
My desk.
Yeah, it came across my desk because that's where my phone is being placed. Anyways, yeah. So I hope Jimenez plays. I think he's electric. He's very dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll also push Milan to make an easier decision in the future regarding that position. And I think we all know what that is. Prediction time. Lecce coming off a shortened week here. I mean, just real negative so far. We'll see how a team like this responds. It kind of seems like it's one of those wounded animal situations that you're starting to look at. And to me, this is more about Milan shouldn't be worried about the wounded animal. You have to kill off that wounded animal. And Milan had to do everything here to put another great performance. I still stand by that this is one of, if not the best offensive team with the most offensive depth in Serie A. They have already proven it. They could have scored 4 to 5 goals on Inter, who were arguably the best defensive team next to Juventus. I think that Milan consistently do a great job, if it's not one player or the other, creating. I think you'll see heavy minutes from Chukwueze in this one. I am actually expecting a romping from Milan. I expect them, probably to do their same old thing where they could concede some goals. But I think if they stick to this 4-4-2 lineup, they get the proper work off the ball, I think you're going to start seeing a positive result here. The high and the confidence that comes with a derby victory like they just had, I think will carry over into this one. And that's just my judgment. Maybe I'm being a little bit more optimistic. For me, 3-0 victory for Milan. Yes, they keep another clean sheet. Leao gets a goal contribution. I think our boy Chukwueze also does as well. Your thoughts and prediction for this one?
Yeah, so I have just want to go through some more detailed data around this fixture. Team form for Lecce. I know we should be talking briefly about goals conceded, goals scored, things like that, and then Milan's record, and then kind of go through again the projected lineup based on Gazzetta has it on their current website is it says Milan has a 4-2-3-1. That's kind of subjective based on how you view things, right? In a match, players are moving around, and before you know it, it looks like a 4-4-2 or it looks like a 4-2-3-1. And we have some more information to talk about. Of course, there's never ending with this club. Positive, guys. So the 4-2-3-1 projected based on what we have from La Gazzetta dello Sport is Emerson starting at right back.
Okay.
Gabia Tomori, Teo Hernandez, Fofana, Tijani Reinders, who supposedly can't play with one another in the double pivot for the 3rd straight game. They are playing together in the midfield.
A decoy, I guess.
Pulisic, Morata, Leao, and Abraham. So it looks like maybe Morata's playing as a winger with Pulisic as a 10 and Leao on the left. That's kind of what it looks like.
I think it'll just be like, yeah, I think if you line up like
it
that.
changes in between the game.
Exactly.
You're going to have Leao and Pulisic drop back. So it's like it's a 4-4-2.
Well, you saw how they were alternating the leading presser in the derby.
Yeah.
It just
So
wasn't
I mean,
always
again,
like
only
it
in
could be
formation
Morata at times is
alone,
pushing same with Kane.
it's 4-2-3-1 based off Gazzetta, but obviously in game and tactically, players are going to move around, and it's going to
Let's let our guy
feel similar to
flow.
what we saw against Inter. So that's from a formation standpoint. Actually, little tidbit: Ante Rebic revenge game. Ante Rebic.
That's a fair point. It's a fair point.
And he's projected, and he is projected to start. So
I think Rebic red card. That's what I think.
I mean,
I think I'll go there. I'll be the one to do that.
That's
so
a long shot. If you want to put a little piece on that, fine.
Oh no, I'm not talking about betting. I'm talking about I think that'll happen. I think Rebic, no matter what, I think is going to pick up a card in this one. I know there's no Pioli there.
Card or goal? Because we saw what
Daniel
Maldini has done to Milan. We saw what Ricardo Rodriguez did to Milan last year when he was at Torino. He only Serie A goal he scored. It's against Milan, of course. So form. As you mentioned, Lecce lost to Sassuolo 2-0. They drew Parma, who Milan lost to on match day 1. Match day 2. Match day 2. They tied Torino, so that's a pretty good result there. 1-0 over Cagliari in match day 3, and then they lost to Inter before that. So this isn't a team that is really entering with any positive momentum. They, if you look at their results, have put up some pretty decent performances to get the results they need for a team in their position. And then more so, again, this is insights based off what FootMob has on their app. So Milan have scored 10 goals in their last 5 matches. They haven't lost to Lecce in their last 10 meetings, 6 wins and 4 draws. They're averaging 2.2 goals per match. And on the Lecce side, they've scored 3 goals in their last 5 matches, haven't scored in 2 away matches. And Antonino Gallo has created the most big chances for Lecce this season with 2. So that's, again, where Milan, from an opposition standpoint, are up against. And, of course, again, guys, I think we need to talk about who maybe the key focuses on a player standpoint are in this game, because Pulisic, he's flying right now. 3 goals and 2 assists. This is a player that's really looking to one-up the season he had last year. And, look, he's done on 2 back-to-back games against big teams, Inter and Liverpool, respectively. I look for him to keep that momentum going, and I hope that Rafa, they're on the same team, but I would love to see him elevate his game a little bit too and grab a goal contribution in this one, because I think that he is a player that, regardless of what we know and appreciate about Rafa and his overall game and impact on a game, necessarily not being tied to scoring goals, I think that the conversation and narrative about him not being efficient enough in front of goal, these are the types of matches that I think you look to Rafa to break those sorts of goal funks, if you will, or snap those goal streaks where it's like, okay, against these teams, he should be a little bit more ruthless, a little bit more clinical. And I know, at the beginning of the season, Martino, we touched upon this in our season preview and our season, look ahead towards some of the matches, and said, Rafa looks like he's shooting more. It's not always going to be the best shot, but he does look like he is shooting more. I would love to see him match that sort of intensity that I've seen from Pulisic from a driven aggression standpoint, and be, again, a little bit more clinical and ruthless in front of goal.
Yeah. The numbers speak for themselves here. Lautaro and Pulisic both added to this, so they both are at 31. Rafa's right there. And I just think real quick, just on that note with the Rafa stuff, I understand criticism of work rate off the ball. It's not going to happen, guys. He's not going to change as a player. And you can tolerate that stuff when he's at the top of the list of numbers like that. And those numbers are only there because also a bunch of his strikers and teammates missed chances. So those should be higher. On top of the fact that he is poor in terms of finishing. We all know that. I think that is the most warranted criticism of him. I understand body language. I'm not excusing any of this stuff. But time and time again, I have to repeat myself. If you really look at it through the lens of this is the most productive player in Serie A, and we're talking about him in the most negative way possible on a consistent basis, I think it's insane. I think it needs to be dialed back a ton by this fan base. And everyone can have their opinion on this, and that's fine. I just think a lot of this criticism is reaching levels of unwarranted that I really haven't seen for a player. And it's kind of tiring because we know how good he is. And I'm sure he's the more frustrated than any of you with half the performances. So let's chill out a little bit. With that, just a quick note, they're back. They're back. These guys can't go away. They didn't really get rid of too many players. Loriente still be difficult. I'll have to look up when exactly we play them, but just in general, man. Listen, Sassuolo took care of business against them 2-0. Wednesday, December 4th, against Sassuolo in Coppa Italia, is going to be that matchup. In between, they have Empoli and then Atalanta on the other side of it. So that's when Milan will be facing off against Sassuolo. Just a small note with that. So we'll move on to the final topic. Well, second to last topic. We'll try and speed run these. Match first, Leverkusen. Leverkusen obviously going to face off against Bayern Munich this weekend. It's a huge match for them, for both of those clubs. So we'll kind of see how their emotion carries over into this match. This is away from Milan. This is their second match in the Champions League. An incredible test to have, to kind of see where Milan are building off. We'll see how they do, obviously, on Friday against Lecce. But if Milan build off of positive results and face a Leverkusen, what are we kind of expecting here? I think there's going to be goals galore. I would be very surprised if this one is a low-scoring one. And I think in the second half is where things are going to get turned up like they usually do in Leverkusen matches. Florian Wirtz, Boniface, they're insane. Teo's going to have his hands full with Frimpong on the right side. And again, this is all about Milan's defensive prowess. How do you match up against the top clubs in Europe? How do you handle them defensively? This is a huge test for Milan. This is going to be one of the 3 most difficult teams that they will face this year, or 5. It's in there. They've already faced 2 of them in Inter, Liverpool. Leverkusen next test besides Real Madrid in November. So your kind of vibes going into this. This one's a little bit more exciting for me. I think I'll take any result. Absolutely. I'm kind of expecting Milan to lose this one. Leverkusen are a well-oiled machine. I think they're one of the more inevitable and great mentality teams that I've seen of the past 10 years. How are you looking at this for Milan heading into this?
It's difficult, man, because I think, they followed up with some adversity, the victory over Inter and from the Liverpool defeat. And, you want to feel and believe that they've turned a corner at the very least psychologically. They've gotten over that hurdle, that challenge, right? It was such a relief and pressure weighted relief from these shoulders of his players. But I think we have to see, the form heading into this game. I think the Lecce game, despite the opponent being on the lower side as far as difficulty, at least you look at in terms of quality, I think that, you still need to be able to show that, you can go and take care of business as expected against these teams. Milan, it could be a matter of momentum and form and confidence going into that game. And Milan know that while it doesn't necessarily hinge on their Champions League progression hinges on this match, things start to kind of come quickly, and before you know it, if you lose 2 straight Champions League matches and you haven't even played Real Madrid yet, now it's one of those things where it's like I think you have to get a positive result against one or 2 of these teams, and that can be in the form of a draw. If Milan get a draw here and lose to Real Madrid and take care of the business against the other teams in the group or that they're going to come up against, I think you take that. With all due respect to Leverkusen, though, I'm still not quite ready to just say that they're going to beat us outright. They're a very good team. They're well coached. We know what they accomplished last year, but maybe there's some sort of blueprint that Fonseca can take from Gasparini in the way he approached Leverkusen in that final. Because I think, again, Italian clubs play a little bit of a different style of football than what maybe Leverkusen and some of the other Bundesliga sides are accustomed to. So I think that this is where I think in a match like this against one of the best tactical managers and one of the most exciting teams in European football today, this is where I think Fonseca's tactical acumen and his game plan and strategy is going to come into play. That's going to be somewhat of a factor here because everything off the back of the Inter victory was well, Inter didn't do this or Inzaghi didn't do that. They played poorly. I've seen a lot of those comments, and I think that Milan still, as a collective, and Fonseca as a coach, still have a lot of doubters and skeptics and critics, and they need to go up against another good team in a difficult environment on the Champions League stage and put forth a good performance. So I'm actually going to go with a draw here. I think Milan are going to play better. I'm not necessarily thinking they're going to create a ton of chances, but I saw what they did last year against Dortmund. They should have beat Dortmund. They should have beat Dortmund. They should have beat many of the teams in that group, right? So I think that there is some history there that Milan can at least kind of latch on to and say, okay, like, what did we do in those matches that made us successful? Maybe we didn't finish the job from a chance creation standpoint, from a tactical standpoint. What can we take from those matches and apply here? Because a lot of the players are largely intact from that team last year. So I think that that's going to be interesting in the ramp up to this match. Of course, Leverkusen, I think you mentioned, have Bayern Munich in the league. Yep. So they have a focus there. So it's an interesting one. I think Milan are going to get a draw here, though, and it's going to look like a pretty good performance from them.
Well, that would be fantastic. I think Leverkusen are just a well-oiled, well-drilled machine by Xabi Alonso, and they're going to be a really difficult out. I think it'll be like a 3-2 loss for Milan. I could definitely see Leverkusen slipping up because of all the energy and emotion that goes into that match against Bayern. Obviously, Bayern are now the favorites this year in Bundesliga, despite what Leverkusen just did last year. Leverkusen still off to a good start. Wirtz and many others, they had a great first game to start their Champions League campaign. I think this is a big test for them too. I mean, listen, it's still Milan at the end of the day. Italian Giants, second most winning club in the competition's history. So it's not going to be easy to go and face off against a side like that at home. So we'll see. I hope they can come out with a draw. Okay, so a couple things as we round up the next 5 minutes here. We'll get into a couple of questions that were sent to us. We'll just keep them very short. Christian Espinoza says Captain Gambia in due time, eventually one day, not today. John Simile says, it's only been a few games, but I'm ready to make Tammy a permanent transfer and give him the number 9 shirt. Yeah, I think everybody's just been very happy with how Tammy has been and what he's been able to show so far. Obviously, his Instagram story post about how Milan or Rossonero is obviously going to help with fans. He's playing the game right with that. Ahmed says, with Tammy and Morata being the ideal starting duo, Jovic out the door, how are we going to rotate? Ahmed is just like, brain goes like 500 miles an hour a minute, like one thing at a time, brother. They have to figure this out. We are it's September 25th. They can't move Jovic right now. Jovic is here. They'll figure out that stuff when they figure out that stuff. I get also,
guys, like things can change. I mean, we're speaking in the now, and I know that's what the question is raised about in that time frame. But ultimately, I think that despite reports saying that they don't see Jovic as part of the project anymore, it could be a matter of, hey, if they feel like they want to start with Morata and Abraham in most games, and that's their preferred setup, then maybe Jovic becomes back integrated. I mean, this is a player that they gave the number 9 shirt. They extended his contract for another year, and he started match day 1, guys. I know we were still waiting for Abraham to come in. Morata wasn't ready. He was coming back from Spain duty and his vacation. I get all that. But I think that people are going to look and think, Jovic is out of the equation. Okay, the media might say that, but if the player's still training with the club and he isn't causing issues, in the media, I think there's a really good opportunity that Jovic still finds his way in maybe the second half of the season if they do decide to keep him and playing some sort of role. But I understand the rotation side of it. That's something that Milan still has to always be looking at very closely, because now when you're throwing your 2 top striker options on there, you have to understand that, if one guy goes down with an injury for a couple weeks, you're really relying on one guy now for all these competitions. So it is a valid question, but I think that it's something that we will address in due time.
Like if they're switching to this 2-striker formation, like Camarda is not ready. Like it's just Ahmed. It's just jumping the gun way too quick. Like they have to rotate these matches. We're not even in the thick of the schedule yet. We really just got into the second Champions League. Like there's so much. Like I am not worried about any attacking positions at all. I'll make it very clear with this team as of today. There's no concern with me and the attack. There shouldn't be any concern for anyone. It should be in the midfield and it should be in the defense.
Well,
You know,
Martino, I do want to mention something too. And there is like it's not cause for concern, but I think it does raise a couple questions. If we're believing the report against Lecce that they're going to go 4-2-3-1 and they're going to play the same type of team that we played against Inter, is this not the match to start Chukwueze?
Perhaps. I mean, listen.
I mean, I'm not saying that their lineup is set in
I
stone,
say it all the time. I love to rotate these players in matches like this. That Chukwueze is more than capable of starting and playing against Lecce, and given our best player in form right now in Pulisic a break. Like I agree with you. I think that's where he should start. But given Fonseca's situation and the pressure and the gravity of it all, you can't
take this game lightly. You have to play your best.
You just can't take it lightly, and that's the only reasoning.
Just a question.
Chukwueze deserved an assist. I think Chukwueze still always makes the most of his opportunities when actually given a chance. Like, it's just so funny to me how people are going to look back on that game and say Chukwueze did nothing and he came on late when he should have had an assist easily. It's just the unfair coverage. However, we're going to end this on a positive note, and this came across my desk towards the end, and it's a Maignan extension is very close, according to Antonio Vitiello. Vitiello went on to say that the contract renewal is approaching, constructive and positive dialogue in recent contacts that Milan has had with the French goalkeeper's entourage. We are moving towards a significant increase in the salary, over $5 million net until 2028. So this would be a 4-year extension for Mike Maignan. He gets a salary that is more than reasonable for when he stays on the pitch at just over $5 million net for one of the best goalkeepers in the league. I think the price is fair. I think it would be great for Milan to keep on to one of their stars, and it's not an insane type of player, worst case scenario, or hard to sell eventually one day. I think that all has to factor into it. He's at a relatively young age for a goalkeeper. He's still like 29, so he's not that old at all. So for me, I love it. You get to keep a staple of the team, and all Mike has to do is just stay healthy and do a better job of guarding that near post. And that's really just my comments on that. So hopefully this gets done. Fingers crossed.
So yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. I think, this was a player that I thought, when we were hearing the reported wage demands from him and his entourage, that it was like 8 million. And I was like, with the injuries, the wages being above what Rafa makes, who's your highest earner, obviously with Teo needing to get a renewal soon as well, you kind of were like having a little pause and be like, maybe it's the time to move on. And a lot of people did, including myself, thought that was a real possibility last summer. But it's very encouraging to see this news that the wages of reportedly $5 million per season, is that a net number or gross?
That's net. It's always reported net.
And always reported net. Okay. In Italy, it is. Okay. That's a great number. It's going to put him just a little bit below Rafa, but it's going to put him, I think, second amongst the earners, right? I think he's still.
I think Morata is like right around the same range.
Okay. And yeah, right. So Morata, I know like Pulisic, those guys are making like 4.
Fenester's
making like 4-ish.
Growth decree coming back is big news as well, by the way.
So $5 million is a good number, and I think it sets the expectation or bar for Teo, who we would love to keep here as well, to earn maybe somewhere in that in between, right, of what he makes and maybe what Rafa makes. Maybe it's 5.5, or maybe it's 5 even, with potential bonuses included to tie to it. So I think it's a great deal. I would love to keep him. I think that Maignan, as we mentioned in our previous episodes, that he is one of those players in the team that does have leadership quality, that you do feel that if you're going through the conversation of who should be the captain and so on and so forth, I'm not saying it should be Mike Maignan, but he is one of those players that has a lot of the qualities that I think you look for in a leader. I just think that really depends on, obviously, where Milan would potentially go with this decision, assuming that, of course, Davide Calabria, doesn't stay with the club past this year. So would love to keep Maignan. This would be a great move for Milan and for the player. He's done a lot for the club. He's one of the best in his position in Europe. So this would be a great bit of news for Milan fans.
Yeah, definitely. And again, another extension of a big player, having the ability to stay with the team, just building off of that. I think just morale-wise, that's a good thing. And this is why, again, just final note, this is why it's not the Banta era. I'm saying get upset at things, absolutely. Direction of the team, ambition-wise, totally fair.
If you're a fan of this, like what's sort of be upset about?
There's nothing.
You
This
know?
would be huge, right? This is what we wanted because everyone's like, oh, if they don't extend him, he's leaving for free. If not, we're gonna sell him for cheap with 1 year left. Well, it looks like he's staying, and they're extending him. So, as fair as your concerns are, negative wise, if the positive is done here, we have to hear it. We have to support our team. I think that's a good thing. I don't think we have to constantly rag on them. Sometimes management makes a good move, guys, and you just have to clap it up.
It's a wild concept, I know, but we can criticize the moves that we think deserve criticism, and we can appreciate and applaud when management does a good job. They did a good job with Tijani Reinders, Pulisic. Those feel like good deals so far, right? There are some decisions they've made that we haven't agreed with. This is one we agree with. I think for the money, this is.
I mean, they extended Leao, they extended Benacer.
Yeah.
When we thought it was a good extension, like they've done for the most part the stuff.
Gabia looks like he's going to get done too.
Decent stuff, yeah. Gabia is another one as an extension. Listen, management's not perfect. We don't truthfully think that they've done a great job. We've said this time and time again.
Yeah.
But it's a positive at the end of the day, and we're going to be happy about that. So I think that's the way we're going to do things. So once again, we appreciate you guys so much. Subscribe, like, and comment. Follow the podcast at that Milan Pod on Twitter, and Instagram and TikTok. You can follow Matt at Matt_Santangelo at AC Milan Bros. You can follow me at Martino Puccio and Martino_Puccio on Instagram, doing a bunch of work. Shout out to the MLM podcast. I'm going to have a Champions League Match Day 2 article coming out for The Athletic, and then some more EPL stuff. Semper Milan podcast I was just on, so be sure to go and check that out. Kush had another great video where he went in person to go and watch the derby in Toronto. That was great footage. It was a great video of his that he just uploaded, so be sure to check that out. Old Hard Rossonero is always someone that I love to watch as well. Milan Coast to Coast, Milan Weekly Podcast. I believe it was Fabio and Stevie P this week. So again, be sure to check all that stuff out. We appreciate all the support. We hope Milan pick up 3 points against Lecce and Bayer Leverkusen. And then, hopefully going to be live after the game against Lecce this Friday. So stay tuned if you want to hang out with me. I'm not sure if Santangelo will be around.
I should be around.
Yeah, so we'll see if he's able to hop on. And other than that, thank you so much. Take care.